On today's episode, we'll talk about working with the new dolly grip, paying attention as the B camera operator, Good Morning Vietnam, Quantum of Solace, and of course, having Sly Stallone hum you the theme song before you do the next take. Just a little bit of business before we start. There may be a curse word here or there in this episode, so please listen responsibly. As always, our website, theop.io, is up and chock full of tips, tricks, and gooey operator goodness. Make sure to check out the breakdown, where the best operators in the biz explain shots they have done, the musings, where we discuss everything from quick tips to larger concepts of storytelling, the answers, the images, and so much more. I may or I may not take a break or two during this episode, but I promise that none of them will be longer than 22 seconds. Finally, if you are enjoying the podcast, please follow us, write a review, share us with your parents, and talk us up around the water cooler with your friends. So grab a beverage, sit back, and enjoy the op. Thanks for listening.
Lock it up, nice and quiet, and let's roll.
Rolling. Victor 30 Echo, take 2.
Hey, Mark. Hey, Mark.
And camera set.
Back up.
And action.
Hello and welcome back to The Op, the podcast where we talk about operating and the art of visual storytelling. I am Dave Comides, your host, and I'm doing something a little different today. I'm actually coming to you from London, more specifically from Fuller in Buckinghamshire, in an old rectory right next to the Black Horse Pub, which is 2 minutes from Pinewood Studios, which apparently if anybody is working at Pinewood Studios, they know exactly where that is. And I am in the lovely 400-year-old home of Gary Spratling, who is an operator here in London, who has agreed to speak with me. Very excited. A couple things about Gary. Nominee in 2014 for his work on Maleficent, nominee in 2012 for his work on Prometheus. He is also a member of the ACO. Some movies that he has done: No Time to Die, Doolittle, Guardians of the Galaxy, Prometheus, Quantum of Solace, V for Vendetta, The World Is Not Enough, Mamma Mia. As an assistant, he was on 2 Muppets movies, because I have to say the Muppets movies, The Muppet Christmas Carol and Treasure Island, and he was actually a loader on Good Morning Vietnam, which I'm very interested to hear from. So I flew in this morning, and I'm dealing with a lot of jet lag, so hopefully I'll stay awake through all of this, but I'm sure I will. Gary, thanks for having me here.
Very good. Hello there, David.
It's really nice to meet you. This is fantastic.
Yeah, nice to be.
Gary and I actually just stopped at the pub, and he had a pint and I had a coffee to keep me awake, and we've been talking, and I think there's going to be a lot of interesting stuff here. So this is a 400-year-old house, literally.
Yes, yeah,
400 years old.
It's 400 years. Yeah.
That's really cool. Like, there's nothing in the United States that's 400 years old. So what's your story? How'd you get to where you are?
Story. Well, my story goes when I had a father who was a DP.
Oh.
And I think from the age of 12, 13, I used to go on the film sets to watch him work.
Yeah.
And one particular one that was at Pinewood, funnily enough, where I remember being picked up from school and going to Pinewood. He was doing a television series called The Persuaders.
Okay.
And that was with Roger Moore, Tony Curtis and Roger Moore.
And this is like 1960s, 1970s?
Yes, yeah, in the sort of late 60s, 70s. And I just remember sitting on Roger Moore's chair, chatting to Tony Curtis, or vice versa.
How old are you at this point?
I think maybe about 13.
Okay,
14,
so you know
maybe.
Everything in the world, and you're talking to Tony Curtis.
Yes,
and Roger Moore.
yeah. So, and I think my father became great friends with Roger Moore.
That's
from
cool.
then on. So
this is pre James Bond Roger Moore too.
Yes,
yes. Yeah.
He was. I think he's like the Saint. He just finished
the Saint. That's right. Okay, so he was a pretty big star.
Yes.
Point, yeah.
So
that's cool.
I think my father photographed for Roger Moore on a couple of films.
Wow.
But that was when I think I got the sense that this is something really quite nice that I'd like to be a part of. And there was always that smell of those old studios, wooden floors. There is that certain smell, which some of the stages at Pinewood still have, because they're not the new ones. They're where they used to, in the mornings, put some cleaning fluid on the floor, sweep everything up, and then you're ready. And it's just that that wonderful feeling.
And
all
you
the
still walk
lights
in.
going.
Some of them are still like
Some
that.
you can
It's
still
like,
smell. I can still
it's in the floor.
sense that. It's in,
Yeah.
yes.
It's probably been outlawed by now.
Yeah,
but
it probably is.
it's still
Probably is.
smelling.
Yeah, you're not allowed to sweep anymore.
No.
Health and safety.
So you came by this honestly. I mean, this is in your blood then. If your dad was a DP.
Yeah, and Godfather was Alex Thompson, and yes,
That's amazing.
It was. Yeah, I was sort of brought up into it.
Did you ever work with him?
Yeah, I did.
Did you? How was that?
Pretty amazing. It was a film called The Keep.
The Keep, which
Michael
is like
Mann.
one of your first things
Yeah.
on IMDb, I think.
That's it.
Yeah.
Michael Mann film.
Wow.
So I was supposed to. I left this particular company I started when I started in the industry.
Yeah.
Joe Dunton Cameras.
Rental house, right?
Rental house, yeah. And I was with Joe's for 4 years,
Uh-huh.
learning about all the cameras, not digital, 35 mils. And Alex said, look, do you want to come out and load the second camera on the main unit with me? And I said, yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Joe wasn't too pleased at the time, but it's because I was one of the first people to leave Joe's at that time. But Joe Dunton is fantastic. And he's like a sort of a second dad. He's really is.
That's great.
A tremendous, lovely guy. So I left Joe's on a job, on sort of like a paid salary each week or each month, knowing exactly what you're going to get.
Yep.
Went on to the Keep and had an enormous fright of the difference in wages because you were suddenly freelance.
Sure.
So that was pretty good.
Uh-huh.
But it was only going to be for 6 weeks, and it ended up 6 months.
Whoa.
So I had some money put,
Was that on location?
All at Shepperton Studios.
Okay, Shepperton Studios. Yes.
So I remember after 6 months, me loading in the black bag on the table, and the producer, Colin Brewer, walked past me and he said, "Okay, Gary, don't load any more magazines up now. We finished." He went straight to the director and the cameraman and said, "This film is finished now."
They basically pulled the plug.
Yeah, so he pulled the plug. You have a film.
6 months you probably should have.
But yes.
Wow.
So I don't think I've actually seen it all. But it is a cult film, apparently.
No, it's got a big following. Yeah.
So,
So 6 months of loading. So you basically were just in the bag for 6 months.
Yes.
Yeah.
Basically.
Be careful of that, by the way, the clicking.
Oh yeah. So for 6 months it was a great start, because you need a start like that to get off, and during that you're knowing people, getting to know a whole load of different people.
Yeah.
And then, fortunate enough, the focus puller at the time went on to another job, and I followed him. So we went on to another. That's great. Film, Lassiter, I think it was, or whatever. But yes, yeah. So
do you remember when you started? So you'd never really been on a set. I mean, you've been on your dad's set, but you never really been on a set as a part of the crew before, right?
No.
So was that overwhelming coming in and trying to figure everything out, or?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Yes, because I left college in Cornwall at 17, nearly 18. So I had my 18th birthday at Joe Dunton Cameras, which was based at Wembley. And for the 4 years, or three and a half, 4 years I was there, I then went straight onto the film set. Now, I knew all about the cameras, but I didn't know how the floor worked.
That's what I was.
How you should be a good loader or a bad loader. And at that time, you didn't have any trainees. Like we all have trainees now that will help the loader. In those days, you did it all.
That was the starting position. That was the loader.
So you got the teas and coffees for all the camera crew. You got their lunches, you got their breakfasts, they got their evening meals, and during that time, you had to load all the magazines.
I was just going to say, how did you do that?
you managed to do it.
Yeah.
I don't know how.
Yeah, you just figured it out.
Yes, you did it.
And I hope this doesn't sound. I'm coming from America, so hopefully this sounds okay. Did you have to know exactly what type of tea and what type of coffee, and if you made it incorrectly, it was a problem?
Oh yeah, they were all fuss pots. They all had to have their tea out of china cups.
Yeah.
They all had to have certain amounts of sugar. Their eggs had to be done in a
And
certain way.
is there tea on set at a certain time?
Yeah, it used to come on little trolleys. The dinner lady or the trolley lady
So
used
Terrence
to come
Nightingale, who's a good friend of mine. I don't know if you know Terrence
I know
Nightingale.
Terrence, yeah.
Terrence was my assistant on ER and then took over when I left. But he told me about the trolley lady who
Yeah.
would come in and
They
like
used
with
to
the little
come on.
squeaky wheels.
Squeaky wheels, all dressed up with the funny hats on.
Oh, that's
And,
fantastic.
You used to have to get the bacon rolls for them or the egg rolls. But funny enough, they never had any money. So it was the poor old loader that used to have to buy all the rolls,
Oh, and then
buy all the teas.
oh, you're kidding me.
And at the end of the week,
Yeah.
try and get the money off them.
And never
And to try and get the money off the camera crew was very difficult in those
because
days.
the wallet was already always in the other pants.
The wallet never opened.
So I guess that's paying. But they're probably, by the way, going, well, I paid for the other people when I was loading.
Yeah,
so
it was
it's
all part of that learning curve.
Okay,
that,
all right. Terrence
first
didn't
thing-
mention that.
Yeah, first
Okay.
thing in the morning,
I
we
like
had to
that.
get the teas and coffees on, and then it went on from there.
That's
Plus the fact
fantastic.
the cameraman would then say to you, "Oh, my suit needs. Can you get my suit dry cleaned?"
Oh, so you were like a valet. I
So
mean, there was a whole.
We did that, or one of the guys' tire was punctured or had a flat tire. So all you had to do was you had to give the clapperboard and your little book of all the prints
Yeah.
to the grip, hoping the grip had a bit of savvy
Oh,
and knew what was going on.
because you're still responsible for that being right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you used to get a terrible rollicking from the continuity if you didn't get the prints right. And I used to have to then go off to the dry cleaners or mend their tires or whatever,
Wow.
come back and have a huge amount of magazines to unload and load. So it's got easier. You learned the hard way.
Wow.
You had to be sort of fairly
Yeah.
tough and
Well, the funny thing is, as you're saying all this, all I can think of is like, then you go on to second AC and first AC, and you're thinking, oh, all I have to do is keep this in focus. It seems relatively easy.
Yeah, and you don't have to walk too far. You just stand by the camera and
Someone else
focus.
buys me all my food, and
Yeah.
that's great. I love that. So because you mentioned it, so you loaded for a while, and then you eventually loaded on. You said your last movie as loader was Good Morning Vietnam.
Yeah. I worked on Good Morning Vietnam, which was just absolutely brilliant.
Was it?
It was out in
Oh,
Thailand,
that makes me so happy.
Bangkok for 12 weeks or so.
Uh-huh.
And it was just a great time.
What a
The
wonderful
locations,
film.
the people, the Thai people are just so lovely. They're
Yeah,
just so
absolutely.
generous, and the food was just amazing.
Was it mostly a crew that they brought, or did they have locals that you worked with as well?
We had locals, all electricians
Okay.
were locals,
Yeah.
which were excellent. So English camera crew.
Yeah.
Peter Sober was the DOP, great guy. And Freddie Cooper was the English main operator,
Mhm.
who was absolutely brilliant. Danny Shelmerdine was the focus puller. And it was it was a most amazing experience.
How was Robin Williams to work
He
with?
was brilliant.
Was he?
Everything. Robin Williams is a showman. He gets all his vibes off people's reactions. So what we did in the studio, when we were in the studio, when he was doing his recording as
Yeah.
a radio
When he's a
presenter,
DJ in the booth
DJ
or
in the-
whatever. Yeah, yeah.
the cameras went to another stage where there was an American base in Bangkok,
Okay.
where they invited lots of Americans to come in onto the stage to listen to Robin Williams. So Robin Williams, everything was nothing. It was nothing to do.
So he's doing stand-up,
So he's
basically.
doing
I mean,
stand-up.
yeah.
So he's getting all his feedback from the laughs of the people on the stage. So he's listening to all those laughters and whatever. So he's carrying it on.
Oh, so because he's in front of that microphone with the headsets on as if he's on the radio, but really he's listening to his audience.
Listening to the audience.
And
And that's
to-
how he performs, because he's a stage actor.
Sure. And would he just riff?
So absolutely.
Oh.
So we had two Panaflex cameras, one starting before the other, maybe by 2 minutes. So when one would run out,
Yeah.
we would quickly reload that. We got 2 minutes or so before the other one
Yeah.
ran out. So it was constant. So
Wow.
we never stopped.
There must be hours of outtakes that are unbelievable.
Absolutely. I loaded 25, 30,000 feet.
So you didn't get to see a lot of it, actually.
I
'cause
was
you were
running
probably-
backwards and forwards from
Yeah.
a hot camera car.
But
35 degrees.
how
of
wonderful,
heat.
though. How absolutely great. That must have been
No,
amazing.
it was.
That's
it was
incredible.
brilliant. It was
And approachable. I mean, as an individual.
Oh, he was fantastic. We used to go out with him in the evenings because this particular focus puller who I was work for was another stand-up comedian. If he wasn't a focus puller, he could have been a stand-up
Oh, wow.
comedian with the most amazing jokes.
Oh.
So he and Robin Williams just hit it off.
Oh my gosh.
So Robin would then say, "What are you guys doing tonight? I'm not doing anything. Come out. We'll go out." So we would all go out with him and just
That's incredible.
have a ball.
What I mean, that's the kind of opportunity you don't get anywhere else.
Yeah.
I mean, that's incredible. Wow.
There was a scene in the film where all the American soldiers are coming back in their trucks,
Uh-huh.
and we were on our way to a location, and Robin just jumped out of his car and just talked to all the American troops. They were real troops,
Yeah.
because we got them
Yeah.
from the base.
Yeah.
And the director suddenly said, "Quick, get the camera out, get it out, get it out."
I know the scene you're talking
we
about.
shot
Yeah,
this
it's an
scene.
amazing scene. So you're saying that wasn't in the script?
No, that wasn't in the script.
He
at
just
all.
saw them and thought,
Just
I'm
saw them.
gonna
Let's
make them
get-
happy for a minute.
Get the cameras out, and we did.
Wow.
And we managed to get 50% of it by the time you
Sure.
get the camera out. It's
Oh, so he didn't
Did-
stop and start again. He
No,
was
no.
just.
he just wanted to talk to the troops.
That's so wonderful.
And give out that had that banter with them,
Oh, that's.
and we captured 2 or 3 minutes of it, which is
So
in
there are
the
a couple
film.
that actually talked to him. So those are actual real troops.
They're all real troops.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a wonderful story. That
Yeah.
makes me so happy. And it says so much about him too, right?
Yeah. No, he was just
Wow.
a very clever man.
That's incredible. What a treat. So when you were loading, I mean, did you ever? So we have loaders, and we have, I'm sure you have here in England too. Like you mentioned it. Interns or trainees or whatever.
Yes. Yeah.
And they're obviously always doing things and this and that. Loaders back in your day were off
They
because
did
they were in the
everything.
bag, but nowadays it's a little different.
Yes.
But I will often look, if I'm on the crane or something like that, and they're there, I'll go, "Hey, come over and take a look," or whatever. Was there that kind of stuff back then where the
No.
camera operator would? No, it
No.
was everything was like you were in your
You very rarely look through the camera, even as a loader or a focus puller.
yeah.
It was take your tape measure out
Uh-huh.
to get the distance as a focus puller, and very rarely, unless it was a very long lens,
Yeah.
as you were a focus puller,
Yeah.
your tape measure only would go 30 feet.
Yeah.
or
Sure. No,
less
you
than
had
that.
to
So you
eyeball
look
it.
through, eyeball it to get marks.
But I was actually asking more from like a mentorship point of view, where operators
Yeah.
going, "Hey, do you want to mess around with the wheels in between this take?" Or
Not
no?
really. Then they kept it all to themselves.
I
in a
think
sense.
that used to be more the case than it is
Yes.
now. Maybe digital has changed that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or remote heads or something, but it's definitely a
Yeah.
change. And so how long did you load for? Like how many years did you load?
I loaded for 9 years actually.
Wow. It's a
It
long
went
time.
pretty quickly.
Yeah, and did you stay with the same crews or you sorta-
There were, yes, because in those days you did stay with the same
yeah,
crews,
which was nice.
and which was it was really great. It's only in the last few years, or 10 years, that it's all been a mix and mash.
Why do you think that is?
What I think that is, I think now because there are more American DOPs coming over, where in my time there weren't so many. There were a lot more English DOPs.
Okay.
And I think over the years, they've retired, they've
Yep.
died, And I think more Americans have come over.
So you're blaming us.
So it's all your fault.
Like most things are our fault.
But, I'm not saying it's your fault now because you keep coming over.
Yeah,
You
I
keep
get you're
employing
happy with
us.
it.
So
I wish
I'm
they
really
didn't
happy
keep coming
for it.
over. I wish they would stay in the U.S. and give us some work, but that's another story for another time.
Yeah.
So 9 years, and then you became a second after that, or?
Yes, yeah. I did the load. I think it was the last Bond film, which was License to Kill, actually. With
I'm so
Timothy
jealous that
Dalton.
you've worked on James Bond movies, by the way. The two things I think I told you earlier is I look at all the English operators I'm going to talk to, and everybody's worked on a Star Wars movie, and everybody's worked on a James Bond movie. And I got into this business to work on a Star Wars movie and a James Bond movie.
You should have moved over here.
I know, but they're in your backyard. Like, it seems like, and the other thing I find is like, there'll be like 6 operators that are on the same James Bond movie. So clearly, like, they came and went, or, day played or whatever. But anyway, that's really cool, though.
Yeah, no. So I did a Timothy Dalton License to Kill, which was all in Mexico. I started off in Key West, and we then went to Mexico and that was the second unit.
Yeah.
And did a long 15 weeks or so in Mexicali, which is an interesting place. It's
no rules kind of situation.
definitely no rules. I managed to get arrested.
Oh boy!
The last day of shoot, or
the
last day of us
tell us why?
Back. Yeah, I'll try and keep it short. We were going back to Mexico City, and I happened to be sitting on a platform, a huge platform area with the grip, Kenny Atherfold, and Mike, the focus puller.
Mm-hmm.
They went off for a beer, and I just had the shorts on and without a top, and I did something which I shouldn't have done, but it was, at the time it was sort of funny, but I did a sort of took my trousers down and gave them a moonie.
How old were you at this point?
Too young.
Okay.
Young enough to do those things, but now you realise you don't do those things.
Okay.
In my 20s.
Okay.
But then we're trying to get things quicker. Then I had a group of, it was such a tiny airport in Mexico. A group of officials came over, said if I would put my top on, and I did.
Yeah.
But then moments later, a car pulled up, and 2 guys came out, huge guys with their cowboy hats on, the cowboy boots, came over, punched me in the face, handcuffed me. Whoa. And as I was walking, as they dragged me to the car, well, I sort of went with them. I didn't argue. Pulled a gun out on me, put it in my stomach as I shouted, Ken and Mike to help me.
Yeah.
I then, when the gun went into my stomach, I then shut up. I was bundled in the car, and we drove off for at least half an hour into the desert, of which I thought
you thought you were going to die.
This is it.
This is it.
I thought my whole career hasn't really started yet. And I'm now going to be.
Well, also, I would
desert.
imagine that there's got to be. If it was me, there would be a big part of me that would be going, and it's happening because I pulled my pants down.
Yeah, that did come.
If it happened because I was saving a girl from the rapids or something.
Yeah, but
wow,
we ended up in a very small town where this guy, they pulled up a young guy. And he came into the car and he spoke a little English, and all they could say to him, he said to me, Senor, you are in serious trouble.
Which you knew already.
And we then got into this police station where, if you ever watched Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, where the 2 of them are in their last little, before they die, before they get shot up, this is what it looked like. And there were little tiny pigs and chickens as I go into this room where I'm taken in the back, and there are all these guys there, and they've all got guns. It was like something out of a Western.
I was just going to say, it sounds like it's central casting. It's just...
And not one of them spoke any English, except for this young kid who said all he could say was, I am in serious trouble. But
which is the only thing you know.
The phone went.
Yeah.
And the one guy who came out, who had police uniform on, because I didn't know even if the police had arrested me.
Okay, yeah.
started saying seat, 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 and so on, and put the phone down, said something to all these guys, and the next minute I've got this one guy putting my shoe on, or my socks and shoe on, and he's doing up my laces, and he said, "Signor, Bond is good. Bond is good." So then I'm escorted to the car, where the car had bullet holes round the whole of this car.
Oh my!
So it's been shot up by someone.
Oh my God!
I'm now going back to there, and they're all waving to me. They're all my best friends now. They're all waving.
Did you ever
goodbye.
find out who called?
So Barbara Broccoli at the time was on the production as an assistant.
This is Cubby Broccoli's daughter,
yes,
maybe?
who I knew very well.
Yep.
And she's phoning everywhere, all the police stations, all connections, and then eventually they found one where I was, and all they could say, get this guy back.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say you're probably not the first person the Broccolis as a family have pulled out of something somewhere.
Every time I see her, she reminds me about it. Every time after the 6 bonds that I worked on, she always comes up to me and says, "You owe me big
What
time."
a story. Yeah, really, when she's making the deal. Is we're not going to pay you that. Remember, I got that's
so. And the pilot didn't let me on. When I got there, the 2 drivers couldn't understand which state I was in, and I explained where I was. I was from England.
Yeah.
It didn't register. They thought I was from a state in America.
Yeah.
So we had to sort of forget that. And then when I got to this small airport, the rest of the crew were on board, and they realised that I was okay. I was safe.
Yeah.
And then it was just this glass window where I saw the captain of the plane, and he's just waving his hand
saying, "You're not getting on my plane."
No. So then I had to stay another night in Mexicali until the following day, where I got onto the plane.
Yeah.
That night, one of the visual effects guys stayed on because he had to wrap all his gear, and he was going back the following day. And he said, he says, "Don't you worry about everything. Stay with me. We'll go out for a quiet meal," because I was still shaking.
I can only imagine.
I was.
Yeah.
It was awful. And he said, "I've got one thing to do." He says, "I've got to get a whole load of drugs, a whole load of weed from these girls that are coming round to
That's exactly what you want to do at this point.
I'm saying, please. He said, "It's all right. It's so easy. I've just got to give this bag of weed to these girls, and then we can go out for a meal." So I get back to his place, still shaking. I'm sitting in his apartment, and he's lit this huge grate, which is like a cigar of
weed. Yeah.
And he's puffed it up, and there's a knock on the door, and these 2 very attractive American blonde girls walked in. One did all the dialogue, could not stop talking, and he's then given her this huge, great cigar-like weed, and she's taken one puff, and she's collapsed. She's passed out on the chair.
Oh my God!
She's fallen on the floor.
This is a movie in and of itself.
At the same time, the security guards are knocking on the door saying, "Hey, you guys, we know you've got girls in this room. We're going to call the police." Now, that is it. I am now falling apart. So Andy, she's now coming to. He says, "Drag her out." And he had a door at the back. So we dragged this girl out. She could hardly stand. She was we dragged her out. As we shut the door, Andy opened the other door to confront these security guys, and they said, "We saw you. We've had notes or whatever that there's girls in your room." And Andy, in his best English accent, said, "I'm sorry. I think you've got the wrong room. This is a friend of mine. We're on the James Bond productions.
Oh my God.
We're just about to go out for a meal. We have no intention of bringing girls. We're going back to Mexico City tomorrow."
Yeah.
And they sort of let her look around. And they, "Okay, sorry, sir." But I found out the reason why the captain said no was because all the arms, all the ammunition, all the bazookas and everything for us to
from the film
was smuggled onto that plane, and the captain had found out and got them all off, because everything's a backhander out there.
Oh yeah.
So he didn't want me on the plane. He didn't want any more nonsense,
didn't want anything
to do with it. So the following day, I'm on the plane and I'm given a letter by the production manager to say, "When you get to Mexico airport, would you please show the army of all the things that we've got on the cargo of this plane? So it was a pretty long trip.
I feel like I should stop this right now because that's an amazing story.
There was a few other things, but we haven't got time.
I'm sure,
But it was
but
pretty scary.
that's an amazing. I mean, that literally is it's a film. That's incredible. Well, I'm gonna ask you this anyway, but it sort of seems like a moot point at this point. You and I are probably roughly the same age. When you started working on James Bond movies, was it just like, I'm working on a James Bond movie? Because I mean, I grew up with James Bond movies, and it seems like one of those things where you'd be like, I can't believe that I'm actually getting to be part of this. Was it wild?
No, it was an exciting experience. Just the name that you've watched all these cinemas as a young
and the Broccoli's,
child,
right?
and the Broccoli's, and it was just something special.
That's really cool.
I mean, but again, once you get into it, there's a rhythm, there's a motion, and you then get on with the job.
Sure, absolutely.
And no matter who's in front of the camera, whether you're doing your job, they're doing theirs. But it did have. There was something about it that always those kind of films that has a sort of a nice feeling.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you're like, oh, this is kind of what I got into this for. To do
that's right.
That's really cool.
Particularly the locations.
Yeah, of course.
Wonderful locations.
They're just not Mexicali.
Not Mexicali. I don't want to go back there again. I don't think I'm allowed to.
You're on the list.
Yeah.
Someone's going to listen to this podcast somewhere and go like, that's the guy.
yeah, that's the guy. Well, the reason I'm going back to that very briefly is this particular area where we were all sitting, the three of us, and when the guys went, and I said, "Oh, give us a beer," and did a moonie. I didn't realise the other side of this area was the Mexican flag on a 30-foot pole. So
that's why they got so upset.
They got all upset because they built it up, but they said in the paper the following day, because for some reason there was a stills photographer there seeing me bundled into this back of this car.
I got you.
I mooned at the Mexican flag.
Okay, that makes a little more sense.
Wasn't quite the story.
No.
But it certainly was in the newspaper, and it certainly was to these guys who punched me in the face.
Oh, it actually made the newspaper?
Unfortunately did.
Oh, interesting.
The Mexicali Times.
I'm going to have to Google that a little bit. We'll see if we can find that. So how long did you second for before you first did?
6 years.
6 years.
Yeah. And worked on some great films at that time. It was commercial world was very busy, so we did a lot of commercials in town, and that was a great time to get to know many people.
Yeah.
Many camera technicians, and working, on commercials. It's you're in and out very quickly, so you're meeting a whole load of director photographies, directors, operators. So that all helps.
Yeah.
Where it doesn't seem to be that way these days, but then it was very busy on commercials because I used to work for RSA a lot, Ridley Scott Productions.
Yeah.
And we used to go over to the States, not saying we were working on a commercial, but we used to go as sort of holidays, but then go and shoot in the deserts, Arizona or whatever, doing BP, Texaco commercials or car commercials under Ridley Scott's
which was huge back then. So that was a lot of work.
So you used to go away an awful lot, South Africa, America, and a lot of in Europe. Spain was the hot place in the 80s.
That's great.
You used to go over 2 or 3 times a month for commercials.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So that was all a great thing to get to know so many people.
Yep.
So when you did move up a grade, you'd already knew so many people.
Yeah.
Which was just so, it was great.
Do you remember the first thing you operated on?
It was a potato commercial, a spud commercial, with all these hundreds of spuds being pumped up in the air, all in slow motion. And then it all went very quiet. And then I think there's an offer of the World Cup '98 as a a cameraman stroke operator, and we went over to shoot for FIFA in France
Okay.
for the World Cup.
Uh-huh.
So I had an assistant with me as a focus puller, and I would operate and light.
Yeah.
The lighting was because it's all the floodlights. They've done it for you, and you can't change those to put an ND on it or whatever because it's football.
It's setting the stop mostly.
So all you had to do was keep the footballer in frame and hope for the best. But I had a second AC who was an absolute football fanatic that I said to him, I'll pull focus and do the zoom, which is on the control, and operate.
Yeah.
You tell me where that ball's going to go.
Gotcha.
And it seemed to work quite well.
Yeah. And also, this was film?
This was 16 mil.
So you had your eye in the eyepiece, which is even a little harder because you can't watch the whole play.
Yeah. But it was 6 weeks out there, and and that was a nice start.
Yeah.
And then then you work on third cameras. On, I think it was one of the bonds again. I got, because I knew everyone, and when they get to hear that you're going on operating, they say, "Oh, let's bring in Gary."
Yeah.
So it was, it was a third camera, and then the second camera operator left to go on something else. So then I moved up to become the second operator, and that's how it all sort of
you keep moving and pulling.
You get going by that.
I want to ask you one thing that I meant to and I forgot about was. As an assistant, you were sitting next to the camera. Right?
Yes.
You were on the dolly, on the knob.
And even the crane.
And the crane.
Titan cranes or whatever.
But I don't,
used to sit.
I'm assuming you also operated on a Titan crane, because remember that crank that turned the whole turret? I hated that thing. I would try to move my body as much as possible to not do that.
The seat was sometimes
terrible
because they hadn't greased it or something.
And the worst thing also was, like, I'd show up for a day playing thing, or sometimes I'd even bite on something, and I'd have a first AC who maybe was a little larger than some other first ACs, so you're turning all that extra weight.
That's right. Yes.
That was those were rough. But do you remember, was there a lot of stuff being next to the operator that you just got through osmosis? I mean, listening to the operator talk to the dolly.
You learnt an awful lot.
Yeah.
Because you were so close to him, and he would, as a focus puller, you watched him. Not only did you have to do your job, but you watched where he would go, watched his concentration of the artist and whatever, and then I would follow or whatever. But and then if you knew them well, they would explain, and because if you're 15 feet up in the air on a crane,
there's nobody else to talk to.
There's nobody else to talk to,
and there's no headsets back then. Thank God.
No, it was So you got very close to the operator, and I think. Then that was a plus.
Were most operators that you worked with people who would share that information? And
I think I was lucky enough that they did.
Yeah.
Yes, they took time to actually share their craft with you. Some of the old timers, some of them didn't. If you sat on the seat too close to them, they would sort of push you away a little bit. But that didn't happen very often.
So it's the same thing in here as it is in the US.
Yeah, the old grumpy ones. But that's all changed now. The grumpy ones have...
I think there was a shift at some point. I don't know when it was, but there was a shift in sort of mentality of...
Yeah, it was towards the start of the digital era.
Definitely started the digital era.
Where the grumpy ones were just faded away.
Yeah.
And there was a new era coming on.
There also could be something, I think, now that I'm thinking about it, that digital was suddenly like, it used to be, going way back, it used to be we were the only ones who saw it, and people trusted us. And
yes.
I mean, I was at the very tail end of that, where they'd go, how was it? And you'd actually be the person making the call. And then video came out and people saw it, but they still weren't seeing it as well as you. But then with digital, I sort of joke that I get to see it, but not nearly as well as the people 40 feet away on that 40-inch monitor, right?
Quality.
And so maybe there's something with digital where everybody's seeing it now, that it was sort of like, well, there's nothing.
It was more of a secret in those days.
I think that's what I was getting to. Yeah.
You and the director.
Yeah.
And you could say, can we go again?
Yeah.
Or you didn't have to say why.
They trusted you.
And there was trust. Now, the toilet cleaner could come in and have a look at the huge, great monitor and have a look.
I don't like that.
Sure.
Yeah. I don't like
Yes,
that.
yeah.
Well, and it's interesting because I firmly believe that directors of photography, I think, have lost something, because it used to be the producer would say, we got to go. And they go, we're still lighting.
No,
And there wasn't much they could do. And now
No.
they can look at what they're getting and go, this is fine. Let's, I think that's changed
the
quite
magic's
a bit.
gone.
Some of it.
As a DOP there, that magic has gone because no one knew his talent, his magic.
Yeah.
It was painting by light, and his word was, we have to stop now because it's got a little bit too dark.
Exactly.
So change film
And
stocks.
nobody could call that.
And everyone would say, fine.
Yep.
And nowadays you can go a little bit beyond that.
Yeah.
You can shoot proudly in darkness.
Well, and I think a lot of these producers now also know what you can do after the fact and go, no, we can fix that. It'll be fine. Let's go.
And as you say, they're looking at monitor. Everybody's looking at
monitors
that can put in their little 2 penn'orth worth.
But there's another weird thing, and I wonder if you've seen this. When we used to be the ones who were looking at it, and I'd notice a flyaway, well, I don't know if we call it flyaway when a hair is sticking up, or a problem with makeup or something like that. I would always instantly, hey, can we get hair over here, makeup over here, whatever. And now sometimes I'll notice something blatant, and there's part of me that goes, well, they're obviously seeing this too, so maybe this isn't a problem. But then there's a bigger part of me that goes, no, I have to say something because that's my job.
Yeah.
So then I'll say something, and 50% of the time someone will say, oh my God, thank you so much. I didn't see that. And I'm thinking, well, you have a monitor that's better than mine. How didn't you? But you're probably on your phone. And then 50% of the time it's, yeah, I know. I'm coming to do it. And I'm sort of like, so you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
No, you're right. It has to be something really obvious.
It's a strange situation, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, again, I always do it because I feel like I don't want it to go past me, but...
No, you should do.
Yeah.
Or even after the take, if it's really heavily into
or
you,
are we okay with
that? Because there was a slight flyaway across there.
That's exactly right.
And at least they know about it.
Yeah. But since we're there, just jumping into operating... do you find that there's a whole, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, there, like you were just saying, and I said as well, like it's interesting, like we come from 2 completely different backgrounds, but we both say, are we okay with? Yeah. Are there these sort of catchphrases that you use to sort of gently bring information to people? Because there's so much of operating is about how you talk to people on set and reading the room and trying to figure out who needs what, whatever.
That is operating.
That's 99% of it, right?
You've got to be a diplomat to be an operator.
Can you talk about that?
And I mean, you just it's you got to get those sort of vibes from the director and the director of photography. But in a way, you are a diplomat because you're explaining. You have to explain. Like I always explain, if we're on a crane, for instance, I always explain to the grips what we're trying to achieve, what we're getting. So rather than a grip just looking at a mark on the floor, going from A to B, and his eyes on a laser beam just going from there to there, I always say to the grips, look, get a monitor, put a monitor on the back, so you are seeing what I'm seeing. Yeah. And then that will help tell the story of why we want to go from A to B. And it has helped because they are, in fact, it's just a big slider. When you suddenly have an extra standing in front of the main artist, and the grip's not looking at a monitor, he's just looking that he's gone over there and he's got his laser bang on the second mark, and he's still looking at it, but he's put it in the correct way. But the extra or the other artist has just leant over a little bit. Yeah. Well, I can't go anywhere. I can't pan left or pan right because he's in the way. Yep. So I always explain to the grips, this is what we're doing. Get a monitor. So when that happens, and it does happen quite often because we're all not perfect. The actors, no matter how big they are, they're not absolutely perfect. They don't always hit their marks. Some of them really do, but there is that point where they don't. It's just nature. It just happens.
I think it's also changed too, because it used to be that they lit actors, and now they tend to light spaces, so they don't have
Yes.
to hit their marks the way that
They don't have
used
a
to.
key light or
No,
they don't have a mark.
not the way they
because
used to.
everything's bounced or whatever. So actually they
Exactly
can
right.
wander off.
Yeah.
And the cameraman's still happy.
Yeah.
Because he's lit for everything.
Exactly. Yeah.
But for the operator, when you've got something in the way, bang in front of you,
Yep.
it doesn't work. So it's just trying to talk to the grips, and then they can then see it, and as they're seeing it, they're sliding over, and then that's how that works. But I mean, being a diplomat, you've got to be a diplomat to the artists, to your main artists.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to talk to them. You've got to be friendly. You've got to talk to your director and hopefully get a nice rapport going on with him at the very beginning, because they have to trust you. And there is a huge amount of trust in there.
Mm-hmm.
So, and because it's their story and you're trying to help get that story for them. So there's a huge amount of being an operator that you have to be aware of everyone and just be yourself, but just be a diplomat and be not rash. You know, you're not going to shout and holler, because the worst thing is someone losing it and getting shouting. You don't shout. Very rarely should an operator shout. Well, very rarely should anyone shout and scream.
Agreed. Yeah. The only time I'd say it's probably okay is if it's a safety issue and you're trying
Yes.
to. But
you know,
yeah.
No one even likes a director shouting and screaming, because that pulls everyone down and puts everyone on a different level.
I think, well, it shuts everybody down too,
So,
right?
And I think the operator, more so to his crew, to all the camera department and all the grips, you can't, if there's something that's gone wrong, you then politely say, is there all right? Can we go again for camera? You don't blame it on anyone. You just say, they don't need to know that.
Yep.
All they say is, we would like another one. If there is that question that comes up, why? Because that was a nice shot for me. You say, well, we didn't get the end right, or, you don't actually have to say the names.
Yeah.
It's a we.
If
it's an I, if I mucked it up,
yep.
I think I would honestly say,
I screwed it up.
I mucked it up.
Yep.
I didn't do it right. Can I go again?
Yep.
What you don't do is you blame a grip or the focus puller and put their name forward, because you don't get any respect from them.
Yeah.
You got to get your respect from your camera crew, and they will then respect you. And that is the most important thing, because you rely on your focus puller and your grips to get that shot. And that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
It's a connection. It's a jigsaw that all clicks. And if one is out a little bit, it doesn't work. Everyone, from the loader to the focus puller to the grips, it all has to just bond together and clear. When it clicks, it's fantastic.
That's the best, right? It's like jazz.
It's brilliant.
It's phenomenal. But I couldn't agree with everything you just said more. One of my pet peeves is when we need another. Why? We just didn't hit that. What happened? What was wrong? And they just keep on. And then you don't want to throw someone under the bus. So then usually, and I think this is what you were sort of alluding to, is I'll usually say, I screwed that up. Please, could I have because you don't want to throw someone under the bus. But then what I've found is down the road, when you've done something wrong, your assistant will call over and go, I buzzed him there. I need another one, and they'll take the hit for you, because it goes back and forth, right?
Yes.
Everybody sort of takes their turn.
Yes.
And I think those are the best situations. Well, look, hopefully nobody's doing it because you're nailing everything, but that's just not the
But there's always at that some point where,
yeah.
We're not perfect and things move in front of us. We have to move with them, and it doesn't always work.
But I think it's interesting, because I think, look, I'm assuming that you had the same experience that I did. Is when you first start operating, you're just concerned about screwing up. You want to you just want to get the work, and you're concerned about screwing up. And then eventually, hopefully, you're not so. You now I want to do an excellent. It keeps on getting refined and refined and refined. But I think the point where you realize that you're comfortable as an operator is where you're willing to take the hit for someone else. because you know that you're good enough that you can,
Yes.
you can survive that, if you will.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really good point that you made for younger operators, that when you do get to that point, when you can take that hit for, if you're on a show and it's a new dolly grip, and or sorry, it's a dolly grip you haven't worked with before, and maybe they hit their mark but someone's off or something like that. If you then say, you know what, I screwed that up, we need another one, they're going to realize, all right, this person's with me, right?
Yes.
And then suddenly you've got an ally, and
Yeah.
and that's so. When you start a show with a new crew, I know we were
Yes.
talking about the fact that you tend to work with the same crew, which is the best. But
Well, I
sometimes
have
it
done when you
happens.
go abroad.
Yeah, but sometimes it happens. Is there the first couple of days, are you sort of like trying to figure out who's who, and what my dolly grip's good at, what they're not good at?
It's
with
dreadful.
the first.
Trying to figure out all their names is the hardest
The
thing.
name forget.
I have to write them over my hand.
I don't know about you, but my thing is always like, hey, your name is so. Okay, I just want to let you know, I forget my daughter's names, so please don't
Well,
take
I'm
it personally.
absolutely
I'm
hopeless.
terrible with this, but I will tell you, I can usually parrot back to someone what they told me about where they went to school and all sorts of other things. So I go, it's not that I'm disingenuous; it's just that I'm an idiot.
Yeah, no, it's
it's the
I
worst.
could be introduced to someone and literally milliseconds, I've already forgotten their
I feel
name.
so much better now.
So
that's
why I have to have all the artists slapped on the camera every day.
Yep.
To just keep looking at them.
Yeah, I've actually worked on things before where people are like, really, you don't know his name? He's won 2 Academy Awards. And I'm like, I know, but I can't remember his name. And I'm like, IMDbing him. Oh, he's in Forrest Gump. Oh, is yeah. I feel much better knowing that. But are there things that you do when you get on a set to try to figure out, to try to figure that out? Like, are there any go-tos that you have of how to?
No, I just think you've just got to be yourself and introduce yourself and just be very friendly and just be as calm as you can and just have a laugh and a joke. And then when it gets down to the turnover bit, go through it. And then if there's anything that didn't go well, or you feel that could go better, you can just quietly say, look, how about if we were to do this, and then if you could just push in a little bit or a little bit smoother or whatever. But always have, don't be harsh about it. Always be gentle about it, and just say, look, how about if we do this, because that's where you gain your respect. The moment you turn your shoulder and give someone a hard time, you've lost it.
I think that's that's invaluable, because you're right. Like, if someone has, like, if they're good, we're assuming someone's good. If they're not good, that's a whole different story. But if they're good, most of us know when we've screwed up, right? We know we didn't hit the mark, or we know that you and I know that we framed them a little off or something, and we're sort of waiting at the end of the take for someone to turn around and why'd you do that? What happened there? Or whatever. And if someone doesn't do that, but instead, like you said, handles it with kindness, is like, that was great, but next time can we pull back a little far? If he blocks, can we clear that? Then suddenly they go, oh, this is a person who understands that things happen, and that's a great piece of advice. You mentioned working with the actors, and you've worked with huge actors. Do you have a process for trying to, because I mean, some actors want everything, some actors want nothing, some actors don't want to know you're in the room, right? I mean, it's everywhere in between. Do you have a process for trying to figure out what they need from you?
No, I think I think particular, for example, the last film that I just finished, which was Knives Out, I happen to know Daniel Craig, so that worked out very well. And there was Glenn Close. There were a few great actors, and I think you just go up, you catch their eye, or if they catch your eye, that's your opportunity to go in and say, hello there.
First day, basically.
Gary Spratling, hello there, I'm your camera operator. Very pleased to meet you. You don't have to say anything else unless they want to continue the conversation, because, let's face it, they're probably just as nervous as you are. They've got to learn all those lines. They've got to do their job, and we're blooming 40 people looking at them behind a camera is quite nerve-wracking. So I think you just sit back, and then each day goes ahead, and if they are in a chatty mood, you can then carry on with the conversation. sometimes they are and sometimes they're not, because they've got so much on their plate. You've got to judge that.
Yeah.
You can't go in and talk about how bad the traffic was on the M25 when they're trying to actually learn their lines, because it doesn't work. But if they come to you, after a while, they gain the confidence or whatever, and they come to you and generally want to talk to you,
Yeah.
you can build that up. But
Yep.
there's there is a line that you don't cross. And I think you don't get too familiar. You don't want to get too familiar. It depends on who it is. You're just a polite conversation and pleased to see them in the mornings and good night, thanks very much, and blah, blah, blah. I think for me, there is a line there that they do their job, we do ours. And as long as you have that nice rapport,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you need to go in and say, oh, what are you doing tonight? Come out to the bar. It depends on the certain person.
Yeah.
And
well, I think it's like, I mean, at the end of the day, it's like anybody else. They're regular people. And if you treat them that way,
yeah,
and some you're going to gel with, some you
in the
won't gel with.
time, and in my past experiences, I have gelled with some of them.
Yeah.
And I've taken them to the Black Horse, which is Angelina Jolie,
Okay.
which caused a bit of a rumpus. She and I walked in and the whole pub went quiet.
Is everything?
Yes.
That's a lot of fun.
Yes.
But I will say, and I've been in a couple situations like that too, not at the Black Horse, but at other pubs. There is a moment where when that happens, I suddenly get a flash of what that must be like and how tough that must be to live that way.
Yes.
Yeah,
no, I mean, it is a tough life, and it's a life that I wouldn't like to.
I wouldn't. I mean, look, that's what they've asked for, and they've, there's pluses to it, obviously, but I've seen that, and I've been like, wow, I would not want to not be able to walk into a pub and have everybody stop. Yeah.
And then that won't, that was then, and that was, I don't know, it was 15 odd years ago that happened, and it was very difficult, and I've been with other actors where all their bodyguards are outside doing the same thing, and it's very difficult. They can't go anywhere. I mean, Daniel Craig had bodyguards with him on the set. And you think, oh gosh, this is a little bit too far, because when we're not going to go and shoot them, we're all working together.
Well, but clearly they're there for some reason, probably.
There's a reason for it, and you don't ask the reason. They're all lovely guys, and Daniel was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, but
that's the way he wants to play it, and that's perhaps the producers say this is how it's got to be, because we don't want any,
Sure. Yeah, but you respect that at the end of the day. The things that I've found are, and I like how you said that, is, first of all, you take it extremely slow. You don't try to push it, because what I've found is most of these actors, the bigger actors, everybody kind of wants something from them. And I try to not be one of the people who wants something.
No, well, that's
and I think that what most of them probably crave more than anything is to be normal, or to have normal moments, and what I've found actually more often than not, I just thought of this the other day, was if I meet an actor and, we, like you said, we sort of, just, hey, how you doing, pleasantries or whatever.
Yeah.
Where I tend to start to talk with them more, and it's only if they talk to me.
Yes.
Is when I'm doing a reverse on another actor in a scene, and they're sitting right by the camera, and they're 2 feet away from me, and there's all that time in between, and they're just sitting there, and you just, how's your day, or something like that, and then and then the interesting thing that I've found is most of them, if they go, oh, I took my kid to the his baseball practice the other day, and it's like, oh, really? How old's your kid? And then they're just talking like a dad or like a mom or whatever.
Yeah.
Those are the interesting things to me, because they're actually,
it brings them down.
They're just
to
people
being normal people,
rather
than a superstar on a film set.
It's exactly right.
No one dares talk to them.
And ironically, one of the things that I found out a long time ago is I'll say to my dolly group, how was your weekend? Did you do anything fun? I generally won't say that to an actor, because I don't want to make it feel like I'm prying for information. If they bring something up, I'll be happy to talk.
That's right, and then that's what I was saying about a line.
The line, exactly.
You don't want to be too curious, inquisitive. Let them come to you and do the talking, and then you can then talk about other things other than the film business.
That's exactly right. Yeah. But it is, and I think that makes you more valuable as an operator if you let them know, look, I'm not I just want to do a good job and be a good
Yeah.
person, and I'm here for whatever you need. Have you had situations where you're 2 feet away from an actor and you're looking through the eyepiece and you just cannot believe that you're getting to watch this incredible performance? I mean, does it hit you in the moment?
One particular actor that I thought was quite impressive was Brad Pitt
Oh yeah.
when we shot Troy
Oh wow.
out in Baja, California.
Uh-huh.
And there's something about him that's pretty cool and nice guy.
Yeah.
Really nice guy. And again, surrounded by all his entourage and his bodyguards. But when you're actually out there with him, just right next to you, talking about families and all that,
He's a person.
He's just a person.
That's great.
He's down to earth.
Yeah.
Sly Stallone. I worked on one of the Rambos.
Okay.
And he's another person who you often, you've watched all the Rambos in the past, you've watched the Rockies,
Sure.
and then you're doing close-ups on him and you think, wow, this is pretty cool.
There's also and I know what you mean, is I've done that before, especially when you're in the close-up. There's that part of you that's like, this is like a movie. This is a movie. This is a movie star.
You're part of it.
It's pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
And actually, those moments, they're more and more fleeting. But when they happen, it's sort of like this. There's that little kid in you that goes, "This is exactly what I want."
This is what makes your hair stand on.
And I'm going to be in the back of the theater, and you're going to be 40 feet high. And
this is why I'm here.
It's very cool.
Yeah, or telling on Terminator.
Schwarzenegger.
Yeah. Telling him, which side of the eye line to look at and whatever, and you think, this is cool. I think this is great.
But that's great that doesn't go away, right? That still happens.
But they're all, no matter how huge they are, and how many Oscars, all these, they're just like you and me.
Yeah.
They're just people who are doing a job. You're doing one job, they're doing another. So they're
still cogs in the machine.
There's cogs in the machine.
Yeah, 100%.
So I went out on Rambo 4 with an English second unit director, stroke cameraman, Harvey Harrison, and I took focus puller with me.
This was the main unit.
So this was the second unit.
The second unit. Okay.
Huge second unit.
Yeah,
it was.
Sure.
So we had Sly for just a couple of days.
This is in Thailand or
in Chiang Mai, which is northern Thailand, on the borders of Laos. So we arrived in Chiang Mai, and I get onto the location, and I said to Harvey, now we're in the middle of the jungle. It's taken like 2 hours to get to the middle of this jungle.
Yeah.
And I said to Harvey, what's he like? He said, he's all right. He said, I've got on really well with him, because Harvey does massive, great second units.
Gotcha.
Such a talented cameraman. And he said he was a little bit over the top with all the entourage and all his security people, a bit like President of the United States with all the armoured cars, and 15 of them. So he said, I've asked him to scale it down a little bit. Oh, okay. So while we're talking, all the assistant directors and the PAs are now shouting and screaming, Sly's coming down the road, Sly's coming down, he's on his way, get everyone ready. It was like oh gosh, here he comes. So this van came round the corner, and it was literally a van. So we're starting to have the giggles about that. And as it came straight towards us, and now he's about 60 yards from us, 50 yards or so, straight at us. And there were 4 security guards hanging on the outside of the van, on the, you got the foot plates of these vans.
And again, this is the middle of the jungle.
This is in the middle of the jungle.
This isn't downtown.
No.
Yeah.
It's just us.
Okay.
Just us. So they jump off this van and they pull out the guns. And the 4 of them are all surrounding the van and looking at us with all their guns. They're Thai security people.
Oh my gosh.
And for us Brits, anything like that is a bit of a giggle. I mean, for anyone, I think it's a little bit over the top.
Yeah.
But it had scaled down from.
But there weren't 15 of them. There were only 4
down
of them. Okay.
one vehicle, but for the security.
And they each only had one gun instead of two.
Probably, or without the
Or
machine guns. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is the bit that I will never, ever forget. The one guy opens the door, the sliding door for Sly to get out. Then he's looking towards us with his gun and looking everywhere. All I see is a cigar poking out of the side of the door. This thing must have been a foot long. I'm not kidding. I'm not actually kidding. And all I see is a cigar wavering around because we're just literally, head on.
Yeah.
So as I see the cigar, now this all happened in split seconds.
Of course.
As I see the cigar, the security guy thinks he's already come out. He doesn't look back to see whether he's out or in.
Yeah.
He then closes the door. At that point, Sly is now trying to get himself out. So I see this cigar and half a face appear with a leg to get out.
Oh my gosh.
The door now is closing. He's whacked himself back. Now, the cigar has got trapped in the door. Right? So we are now in hysterics.
And this is the first time
this is the first time I've seen
Okay.
So now, again, split second, the door has now slung open, slid out, and out he comes. He takes off this cigar, what's left in his mouth, shoves it down. He says a couple of words to the security guy, which we do not know what he said, and then starts marching towards us. And he's got all the blood,
he's made up like
he's
Rambo
made up,
and,
ready to go.
Yeah.
And he comes straight up to it, and you think, oh my gosh, what is he going to say? And then suddenly Harvey says, hello, Sly, I'd like to introduce you to my operator and my focus puller. And we say hello, and he looks at me and he says, okay, he said, nice to meet you. He said, everyone's close-ups are head and shoulders. Mm-hmm. My close-ups are just the eyes with the nose in. He says, you got it? I said, I got it. Okay, move on. And off we go.
And that
was it.
Wow.
So the first shot, he because he's directed, he's produced it, he does everything.
Yeah.
He does everything.
Yeah.
So he's in the bushes and he comes out and he says, right, put a 135 on handheld. I'm going to come out of the bushes, do a few roly-polies and go onto this armoured van.
He knows this better than anyone else on that set, I'm sure.
And
that's great.
You just say, yep, okay.
Yes, sir. Yep.
You just get on with it.
Yeah.
And pray to God that it all works.
Yeah.
So in the bushes, I hear a turnover. And in the bushes, he shouts out, action! And within moments, he's come out like a bullet. And he's flung himself, does a roly-poly, goes under this truck. And then it's all quiet. And he says, cut! And his head appears from underneath. And he looks at me and he says, you got it? Well, you don't say, yes, maybe I did. I think I lost it in the middle, or the focus puller. You either say yes or no.
And
that's all they want. So anyone who's starting up in the industry as an operator, the directors don't want to hear, yes, we got a little bit here, or they want to hear, yes, we got it, or can we go again? If they want to know the reason, they'll ask it, but it's yes or no.
Keep it simple.
Keep it simple.
Yep.
Don't give all the dialogue. Because
Yep.
I've seen so many operators on second cameras or third cameras come rushing up to the monitors saying, I think I could have done a little bit better here, where the director hasn't even noticed that they've made a mistake. They stepped in, put their foot in it, where you should step back. Let them tell you whether they like the take or not.
Mm-hmm.
If you feel you've made a mistake and they don't say anything, keep it quiet. Don't even interfere. Make it better next time.
Yeah.
But don't force them don't keep putting your hand up saying I'm a mistake, unless it was a total disaster.
You have to protect yourself that way.
I mucked
no
up there.
Yeah.
Can we go again?
But not,
my
pan had been a little
if I go
faster.
a little bit left or so anyway.
By the way, just that's invaluable, because the other thing that yes or no does, it instills confidence.
Yes.
But the other thing is no stops everything, because sometimes the AD is already walking over to the next set before anybody. And if you get in there and go, I need another one.
Yeah.
And then suddenly it's like, whoa, everybody,
So
Yeah.
So we said yes on that one, and I'm pretty sure I got it all in frame,
Yeah.
and I think the focus puller got it sharp.
Yep.
So the whole day went on from there. He killed a few.
That was the
hundred
first
people.
shot, right?
That was the first shot.
So, but the other thing is, and just to say it, is also what you're saying to him is, you can trust me. I am succinct, and I'll say yes or no, and I gave you what you wanted. So you're
Yeah.
building trust with him there, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
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 Which he wants to hear, and that's how
Yeah.
we want to carry on.
Yeah. And after a couple of days of that, maybe then you go, hey, I got an idea, and he might want to listen
Yes.
to you because whatever. But so he kills a couple more 100 people.
So he kills a few more 100 people,
Yeah.
and then the last shot of the day, they built a raised platform where he's just killed a whole army with that massive great machine gun of
Sure.
his, which you
As
and
he-
I wouldn't be able
as
to
he
lift,
does.
but he can lift
Yeah.
quite easily.
Yeah.
And he wanted to step into frame. It was on an 85mm, so it was a very tight lens just on his face.
Mhm.
He walks into frame, profile, and we track around him, finishing up on his eyes where he's got to cry.
Mm-hmm.
So I said to him, that's great. Do you want to step into this? So it's a clear frame, and then you step in. And I said, do you want to leave it a couple of beats, and then we start tracking? And he just looks at you and he goes, yeah, okay. So I said, all right then. So I tell I'll never forget his name, Non the Thai grip,
Nice.
who did nothing but smile. What I didn't know, he didn't speak any English and didn't understand English.
Okay,
Which I
yeah.
should have sussed that out, but because
Fair
most of
enough,
it was all handheld
Okay.
throughout the whole
So,
day.
but this was on circular
So
dolly
now
track?
we've got a Ellie Mac dolly
Oh boy.
that I could walk
Yeah.
around and get round it.
Yeah.
The track was, and he had to do a chalk line because it wasn't track, it was a board.
Oh,
they
okay.
boarded the whole lot.
Oh, I got you.
Beautiful
Yeah.
teak,
Yeah.
8x4 wood that weighed a ton.
Unbelievable.
So, and he looks across to where he's just killed every man, beast, tree. Everything is just,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a war zone. So we've established that he's going to walk into frame. So I said, okay. And I said to the grip, let him walk into the frame. And he's still smiling after me.
Yeah.
Walk into the frame, count to 3, and then we track.
Now he's
And
understood none of this.
He's
but you
but
didn't
he's
notice
given
it.
me the
Yeah,
impression
yeah,
that he has.
that he
He's
has.
smiling
Yep.
and he's
Mhm,
nodding.
mhm.
So,
Yep.
great, good
Yep.
nod. Okay. So he steps in, and I say set, and he was then going to go step out. He
Yeah.
steps in to get a frame,
Find the frame.
focus
Yep.
puller can get the sharps,
Yep.
and then he steps out. As I say set, he's still in the frame. In comes his makeup artist, who is called Randy. Now, Randy is his makeup artist for many years and his hair specialist. And Randy came up to me and said, if there's anything you need to see on Sly, call me. I'll sort it all out.
Mhm.
I'm in charge of Sly's hair and his makeup.
Okay.
Okay, how do you do? Great, thanks
Great.
very much.
And he tells you this after you've already called
Moments, as I say, set.
Yeah.
I've said set. He then bounces in and moves one little strand of hair. Now, the guy's just been through hundreds of bushes. He's
Mhm.
killed
Yeah.
150 men. His hair is going to be a little bit out of place. But Randy has decided to move one
Sure.
strand.
Yeah.
But he's taken a long time to do it, and we're still running. So I'm looking at it. And then Randy looks at the camera and says, he's looking great. This is great. So he's looking at the camera saying all this.
Yep.
Of course he is, because all the producers in the States are seeing Randy and
Oh, yeah.
thinking, what a fantastic job he's doing.
Absolutely. Everybody has
So-
a reason. Everybody has a reason.
He's done his bit.
Yeah.
He goes off. Sly steps back. Set. In he comes. I count to 3.
Mhm.
It's the longest 3 seconds I've ever come across. And on 3, I go, nothing happens. We don't move. And I look down at Non, and he's still looking at me, smiling.
Oh my gosh.
And then I look through the camera, and there's Sly. He just looks. He turns around and looks
Oh.
straight at me. That was then when you've got to speak up very quickly.
Yep.
Don't let them say, why did you not track? And you have to give. I immediately say, Sly, can we cut? can we do this again and let me cue? Because we've got different nationalities. There's a complication with timings, and can we do one more and I'll give the cue, because there was a misunderstanding.
So basically, you stepped in and controlled the situation rather than getting out of control.
He does, because
you know where that's going.
It's going to go the wrong way.
Yeah.
It's not going to be good for me.
No, that's an amazing story. Yeah.
May we please carry on, but let me cue the grip, because he didn't understand.
Yeah.
Let's try and do this.
Yeah.
So off we go again. Slides in. Randy appears to move this same hair that wasn't really in the way.
Of course.
As he's doing this thing, I say to the focus puller, I said to him, turn the camera off, because we're shooting on film.
Yeah.
So he turns the camera off. Now Randy has got ears like Bugs Bunny. He turns round and says, why have you turned the camera off? Now you don't want to hear all this, because you've got sliced.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I said, we've turned it off to save film. So when you go out, I'll turn it back on and say set.
Yeah.
He didn't like that.
He didn't like that.
I think I lost a friend on that.
I didn't see.
That's
not what Randy wants to hear.
He stormed off.
Okay.
So the tuft of hair or whatever was just left standing because I think I upset the fella. So anyway, which by the way, again.
Maybe the reason that movie didn't do as well, but that's another story. We can talk about that after.
So he steps back. Off we go. I've got that nervous laugh with the focus puller, because you think, oh gosh, what's going to go wrong now?
Well, and the other thing is, but you're also at that point where you're like, I've already taken 2 of my lives here, and I can't screw up. I don't have another option. Yeah,
there's no more doggy lives left. You either got it or you get on the plane home.
Yep.
So in he steps. I count to 3, and my foot is right close to Non's shoulder.
Yeah.
And on 3, I give him a little tap.
Yep.
Could have been a little bit softer than I gave it, but I wanted to make sure he understood what a tap meant. And off we go. Yep. And we do the whole thing.
Ba-bum.
Slide cries. He's good at crying at the time. Waves to the girl that he's fallen in love with at the end of this disaster area down in the canyon or whatever. And we do it 5 or 6 times. And it was quite nerve-wracking.
Sure.
He goes off to look at his monitors. I go back to Harvey. Well, Harvey comes up and he says, oh, gosh, that was a bit... I said, oh, please, we don't want to do that again. Then I hear the sound. Hey, operator guy, come over to the tent. So now I can't...
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, shit.
Which way is this going?
What do we do? What are we doing? I now have to go through part of the jungle, through all the audience, all the producers and all that, and they're all looking at me thinking, oh, he's on his next
They're already calling
home.
New people in.
Is so-and-so available? So I've got a great photograph of him and I looking at this monitor.
Yeah.
And he says to me, you're not doing it in time with the music. And I went, there's a pause, and I went, what music? Yeah. He said, the music to the film. And I went, I don't know any music to the film. I said, I just got off the plane 2 days ago and no one told me about the music. And then there was this deadly silence that you could drop a pin on the floor and you could hit, you know what I mean? It was that serious. And I'm thinking, what is he going to say? And he's got that huge, great knife and he looks so, and you think, he's going to knock me out.
Yeah.
And he says, I'll hum it to you. So for the next 3 minutes, he's humming this music to me. And I've got Harvey and Kenny behind him near the tent, slightly left of the tent, the video tent, where they can't stop laughing. Oh, they are creasing themselves.
Yeah.
I'm trying to keep a straight face. And he's now 6 inches away from my face, humming this music, and then stopping when we stop, when we're in front of him.
So he's walking around you as he's humming.
Yes,
so he's doing the camera. Okay. You know what, though?
Then he stops, and then he carries on with his hum, and then he looks at me and he says, you got it? I'm like, yeah, got that. And he punches me on the shoulder. He said, okay, let's go again. We go through the whole process of doing this thing. Randy's disappeared now.
Yeah.
He's probably on his way to the hotel because he's got so upset. How do I say to Nom, You got to do it in time with the
Yeah,
music.
yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah.
you wasn't there with me as
Yeah.
Sly did it.
Yeah.
It was good. We're lucky enough if he had set off after I've kicked him,
Yeah.
not alone going slower speed or a faster speed.
Yeah.
We did exactly the same. You can't. He went back and he said, "Great." Well, I don't know what all that was
It doesn't
about.
make a
Whatever,
difference.
it doesn't matter.
Yep.
At the end of the day, we got the shot.
Boom.
But what I will say to people is be positive of what you're going to say. Don't give out, don't waffle, don't give out why it didn't work or why it should work. Be absolutely positive to say, yes, that worked really well, or it didn't work, can we go again? And as you've just said earlier on, you don't need to explain. Don't start digging a hole trying to say, yes, but we did this and the grips wasn't quite right or the focus. They don't. It's a yes or a no. Move on, because it's time. They haven't got time for people to keep going on. They just want to go again. Let's do take 2 and let's get it, or take 3 or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's that process.
I think it's also that all that stuff isn't their problem. That's your problem.
Yeah.
They just want to know why is it going to work? Yes or no?
Yeah.
And a lot of times, I mean, I'm sure you've been there where someone's come up and explained something and I don't completely understand it because something's not right or something's not gelling. And my job is just to say, yep. And then as I turn around, your eyes are wide going, and then you start talking other what you think they meant. And then like you said, with that, well, you did the shot the same again, but it worked. And sometimes
I don't know how you could have changed.
It was just that he
shot.
maybe had to exercise it out of his head, and that's how he was saying. It doesn't make a difference. But
No.
sometimes you're not quite sure, but you still have to just go, yep. Okay, good. Because that's what your job is.
And again, if you'd gone back and say, should I have gone slower, or do you want me to go faster? That puts a query into their head.
He doesn't know
They'll
what he's
analyse
doing.
it and say, oh no, I want to go slower. No, it wasn't that.
Yeah.
He looked at it and he was happy. You don't go into that.
Yep.
You know.
Or the other thing I've had with some people is, hey, can we go slower but get there a little sooner?
Yeah,
or something like that.
That's a
where
cracker,
it's
isn't
and you want to go, well, the laws of physics.
Yeah.
But instead you go, yeah, and then you look at the dolly grip and you go, just push us a little faster, I guess. You know, or whatever, because sometimes you just have to punt, right?
Yeah.
That's a fantastic story in and of itself, but it also has great.
It's the cigar.
It's a great teaching moment, teachable moment, and of all the people too. It's not like it's I don't know who I would put in there. It's not like someone that is absolutely easy or
yeah. He
not
was fine.
intimidating.
He was good.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's great. What do you think is the difference between a good operator and a great operator? Besides some of the things you've spoken about, or maybe that's what it is.
No, I just generally think that you got to be yourself. I think you got to understand where that camera's going and to tell a story. And, as I think most operators, anyone can keep a head in frame to a certain degree.
Hopefully, or they have to at least.
Yeah. But it's how you get the head in frame, where to leave it, or where to stick to it, or where to go on from there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's as a new operator just starting, he'll always start on a third camera, and that's where you learn, because generally on third cameras they throw you in the deep end and you end up on the tight lenses
On a 275 or something, yeah.
And that's your learning curve, and that's how it all starts. And it's very rarely will be on a crane. It would be on a slip head, which I would recommend, and not a
What's
particular,
a slip head? A fluid head?
A fluid head.
Yes, fluid head. Yeah,
we used to
like
call
a
it,
O'Connor or a Sackler.
O'Connor, because then you've got the you
Sure.
can move around a bit more flex rather than the
Yep.
handles, because if they suddenly too fast, you're rushing
Yep.
or whatever.
Yep.
So I think that's your start of your learning curve, to actually go with them, knowing where to stop, or even when if you're on a long lens, someone falling off a cliff or into water, knowing not to over operate so in the water and then bounce up.
The bounce up, yeah.
That takes time, and that takes a while to get into that system.
Yep.
then as a young operator, you gain that experience. I would almost certainly say, if you're a third camera on, as a new operator, watch the rehearsals, watch the takes, because even though the second camera and the third camera aren't playing, it's the main camera, you're going to be thrown in at the deep end at the last moment during the middle of the takes, because the director may say, let's get a single on so and so, or let's get the hand coming out of the pocket. Now, if you don't watch those takes, you're in the dark, because you'll be asking questions. You won't put the camera in the right place because you don't know, and they won't give you a rehearsal just because the camera's coming in during the takes. You'll shoot straight away. So you want to watch. Don't go in back of the camera car or have coffees or catch up on whatever's on the phone. Watch everything, because you will be thrown in at the deep end to grab something. Or even if that hasn't been, you could suggest to the main camera operator, say, listen, there's an insert there that I could pick up. Do you want me to get it? And then they can plant that information through to the DOP, or how well you know the director. The pair of you could come up and say, look, do you want that there? That's how it works. So I would almost, absolutely say, if you're on a film as a new operator, you got to pay attention at all times. And also, it's a learning curve anyway. You're watching how it all works, how your A camera operator conducts himself, how he talks to everyone, how he talks to the director, how he talks to the actors, because that's a teaching. Whether the A camera operator knows that he's doing that all the time. So these young guys should listen to see how it works, because sometimes they don't know how to chat to people.
Couldn't agree more.
It's so important that they watch everything and not wander off saying, oh, I'm all right because they've just done a rehearsal and there's no extra camera.
Yep.
That's a lie.
The other thing is, if you're sitting there watching that, and let's say it's a scene with one camera, you're learning very quickly what they think a close-up is, because a close-up is different on every show, and every person, what headroom is, what they like in headroom, and they can be talking to the DP. The other thing, I'll say it here, but I've said it before, is I always tell not only other camera operators, but even assistants, assistants usually on it anyway, but the interns or whatever, if I'm on a remote head on a crane and we're on headsets with I tell them, if they can, grab a set of headsets and listen in on how we set that up, because that's a whole dialogue that most people don't get to hear. And the first time you have to do it, it's overwhelming.
Yes.
So, it's that thing of, and you know this, having done it enough, it's sort of like, it just falls into place and it happens and you know what to do. But those moments are fantastic. And I love the fact that you mentioned how much you can learn from that, because there's no question. And the other thing that I've found that, being C camera operators, when I'm the only camera working, they'll come up to me afterwards and say, hey, out of curiosity, why did you do this instead of that? And they sometimes will go, wouldn't you have tried this? Like, they're not only watching what I'm doing, but they're also thinking about what they might have done in that situation, which I think is a really healthy game to play, because there's no correct shot, right?
No.
There's just different ways of doing things.
But you can't learn that kind of experience. You can't go to a school or whatever to know how it works. You can only see how it works in the real world.
Yep.
And most of the time, you're doing it in the real world for the first time. So you grab the opportunity to watch those people, your peers, how they're doing it and how they're orchestrating that particular shot.
Yep.
And then hopefully they will gain that confidence and then become like we all have, the third cameras, the second cameras, and then having the opportunity to become a first camera.
Yep.
And hopefully we're able to teach our guys who are coming up in the industry that way.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, sometimes you don't have the answer, because I was on a thing a little while ago and we had done 3 takes and the actor had done the same thing every time. And on the 4th take, I think he went and he sat down. I think it was he went and he sat down much earlier than he had. Like he had gone over to grab something and then sat down, and this time he just went and sat down. And it was a tight lens. And I went with him and I sat him down, and the B camera operator came over and he goes, "How did you know he was? Did he tell you that?" And I was like, "Tell, is he gonna sit down?" I said, "No." He goes, "Well, how'd you know to go with him?" And I looked at him and I was like, "I have no idea."
That always.
I would love to tell you, but I
Yeah.
don't know. I just there's something in.
That's
But
the worst.
but that's also a tremendous amount of watching that is you start to understand body language and with specific actors, right? Like there are tells that people have of what they're going to do, or there's I've noticed there's some actors who, like, before they stand up they'll always tap their knee, or they'll do, or something or other, and you learn those things which are invaluable. Do you have a memory of a shot that you did that just you completely blew? I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. We'll be back soon with another great episode. Don't forget to check us out on theop.io for all sorts of information on operating and storytelling. So thanks for listening and have a great day.
And I wasn't doing the picture, but Phil Mayhew, the cameraman, asked me to do all the tests for all the different artists who were coming in.
Yeah.
And they built a film set as it would be.
Wow.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
And we had this young girl who sat down as though she'd just been shot. And this
is every operator's nightmare, sit downs and stand ups.
How am I going to do this?
Yeah.
And then she had to stand up during the take.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And equally, she bolted up like a bullet. And you think, this is tricky.
So first take you missed her completely.
Yeah. And then the second take, it got better. And I think
did you talk to her, or did you
made
just
a
try to
mistake.
adjust?
Now, again, it's all about, now I can say to actors, Daniel Craig or anyone or whoever it is, I say, you see the rehearsals, and then if you know that it's going to be too tricky because there's a jib as well or whatever, you could say to them, if you get to know them, and you could say, I just wondered, can you take the edge off a little bit as you sit down, because it's fairly tricky. And 9 times out of 10, they'll say absolutely, and they'll show you, because they're not thinking. They're thinking of themselves. They got to sit down and carry on with the next line.
Who thinks about how they sit down anyway, right? Yeah.
So once you've jolted their memory, it's good.
Yep.
But on this particular occasion, I went, because sometimes you can go to the director and say, would you mind if I ask? So that's depends on the situation. You could either ask them, or if you get to know the actor, you say to them in their ears, you say, you wouldn't mind just going a little bit easier as we got to come down with you. And they're absolutely, if they're perfect. But because it was my very early stages in the career, I went to this actress and said, exactly, would you mind just easing it off? Well, it's 50-50, and this particular occasion wasn't the right time.
It was the wrong 50.
Because she sat down as though she's all in slow motion. And it was like, it took like 3 pages for her to sort of sit down. And Martin Campbell, the director, went, cut. Why have you sat down so slowly? What's the matter?
I'm dreading
and
this.
She then turned around and said, well, he told me to. And that's when you think, oh dear.
Yep.
And then you got the director saying, don't ever do that. Always asking me, why do you don't talk to the artist like that was his, I think he was a director like that.
Yep.
And I took it on board.
I think every operator in the world has had a situation like that. Not that, but a situation
like that. It was just horrible. And
so,
I mean, later on, after we did the take, I went up to him and said, look, I am so sorry about that. I do apologise about that. I won't do that again. I've learnt something. I should have sort of talked to you.
Yeah.
And he said, no, that's absolutely fine, Gary. Just let me know in future.
Yep.
So he was a director that wanted to know, if you're talking to his artists, go through him first. Yeah. You've got to work that out. And no one knows, no matter how experienced you are, no one knows which gear to work.
Exactly.
It's just working, knowing, after a few years of doing it, you can go to the particular artist who isn't going to say, he told me to say it.
Yep.
if there's a query, you could then go to the director and say it, and he might say, "No, don't worry. I wanted to sit down quickly. We'll cut.
Yeah.
We'll do.
I like it.
Do other ways. I
Yep.
like that speed because I'm going to do a close up as she's just sat down.
Yeah.
So you work along that. So I would say to anyone, don't rush in and start changing things immediately. Just suss it out. And I think
how did you mentally deal with that though? Because that's sort of
no,
crushing.
that was quite that. For me then, that was quite a blow.
Yeah.
Because all the other takes, you're still getting over the fact that you shouldn't have done.
It lingers for a while,
and it
right?
lingers.
Yeah.
Oh, it lingered all afternoon.
So do you mentally just push it out, try to push it out, put it in a box, I'll deal with this later, I have to go back to work?
No, you do, but that little box comes back again.
It does, right? The drive home is not fun.
No, or getting into bed, and you think, why did I do that?
Yeah,
You think you all the things going in your head of what you could have done, but you didn't. You did it that way, and it wasn't the right way. But we all go through those things, and it's not,
I think that's the key is knowing that it happens to you, it happens to me, it happens to everybody.
Yeah.
It's just part of the game.
I think they're always going to beat you at some stage. You're not Superman.
Yeah.
At one stage, they're going to beat you.
I also think it's funny that you said that because I've heard a lot of other people say it, and I've done it. If you have never had an actor go, well, he told me to do it, you probably have not been doing this long enough because I think it's happened to us all. And
I obviously look so green.
No, it's the worst thing in the world. And the thing is, it could be the most innocuous thing that you don't even think anybody is going to notice or care about, right?
Yeah.
So that's why you said it, because it's like, well, this isn't going to make a difference. And then suddenly everything has changed.
She aimed it straight in my court.
I don't know. You just told me to do it.
She wasn't going to take it. She said, no, she could have done, but no. It all went to straight at the camera. The hands were pointing.
And that moment, by the way, when that happens, everything, like all the air leaves the room. It's totally silent.
You wanted to get under the dolly and just hide.
Oh yeah, the dolly grip is slowly backing away from you. The camera assistant is packing his stuff up and leaving.
You're left standing there, holding onto these handles that aren't there. And you're just there, fresh hair, just looking at her.
It's fantastic. Do you still get nervous when you start a show?
Yeah. I think you should do.
What do you get nervous about? What I mean, at the beginning, it was nervous. Can I do the job? Obviously, you can do the job.
You're nervous you're nervous that you. I think it's a good thing to have nerves because that really gets you alert.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anyone should go in and say, "No, this is a piece of cake. It's cool. It's just no." I mean, everyone should enjoy it, take it on, but I think the nerves are always there when you the first shot is always because you just want it to make it work, and the director say cut, great, let's move on. Then you go, that's the first one done. You get past the first day and you think great, the first week, then it's the first month, and then when you get past the first month, you think, I've got a chance here.
Yeah, but I was 25 when I started the TV show ER, which was massive, and I was the only camera operator at a camera. I didn't put all my stuff on the truck, I think, for 2 weeks because I just was like, "There's no way I'm doing this show." I mean, we all know that. but every day I'd look at the call sheet, I'd be like, "Oh, I'm back.
I'm still here. My name is still on it."
Actually, I'll tell you something. You're like this on. I think it was like it might have been my first week. There were it was a hospital, so there's all these glass, partitions everywhere. And on the weekend, a friend of mine was marrying a DP who was friends with the DP on the show. So I knew we were, and I said, "Oh, are you going to the wedding?" "Oh yeah, I'll see you this weekend. We'll see each other at the wedding." I don't really know the guy yet. I've only been working a week. And I'm home and I'm watching dailies, and we're doing this slow dolly move. And as I come around to the side, I'm completely in the reflection of the glass. You can see the mag. You can see me. You can tell what my haircut's like. You can see the camera assistant. You can see the boom over everything. And I was like, "Oh my God!" And so that week, I see him at his name's Richard Thorpe. He's an English guy. He's very funny. And I said, "Richard, can I talk to you?" We got our champagne and whatever. "Yeah, what's up?" I said, "Listen, I'm sure you watch dailies." "Oh, I don't watch dailies, do you?" "Well, oh, okay. Well, so you remember the scene, came around here?" Yeah. I'm completely in the glass. And I think I may have even said, "Look, I know you've got to replace me. Like, so, like I just assumed. And he puts his hand around me. He's like, Dave, we're at a wedding. Nobody watches dailies. They'll cut around. It'll be fine. And to this day, like, I think about that shot and I still, like, I clench up a little bit because it just haunts me. But, we all have those things, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just was like, there's no Monday, obviously, I'm getting my stuff. And I lasted on the show for 3 years till I decided to move on. But there you go. That's just what it is. And what about working with the AD? You were like, what's your relationship with the assistant director?
The assistant director.
Yeah.
He's your other arm.
Yeah.
I mean, you actually need 3 arms. One for the grip, who's your right arm.
Yeah.
One for the focus puller, and the assistant director,
Yeah.
first AD, is so important for you to help you out. To you've got to have a rapport with him, a relationship with the first assistant, definitely.
Yeah.
Because he's the one that's going to help you, and he's the one who could destroy you as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's very important, that straight away you get on with him, and he needs to know about your operating as well, because he's the one that's got to get everything done in that day. So he doesn't want to have too many takes because there's problems.
Yeah.
He wants to just get the director to say, I love that first take or second take.
Mhm.
Let's do it. Let's move on. So, everyone relies on everyone. So the first assistant is relying on everyone on the floor, but including the camera department, the operator, to get what the director wants as soon as possible.
Yeah.
So the first assistant can, at the end of the day, say, we're on schedule, tick. We don't have to do things first thing in the morning because we haven't finished off there.
Mhm.
It's all a system. It's all a routine, and it's got to all work together. So your first assistant, you've got to make friends with and get on with. He's one of your first main people to be friendships and so forth.
And do you after the rehearsal, when the director and the DP are talking about all of the coverage for the scene or whatever, do you sort of go over that with the AD as well in case there's like, but I think they're also going to need this, or keep an eye out for the to give them an idea? And
normally the script supervisor or whatever will come in and get involved, but you are part of that.
Yeah.
Because there's so much to do, and then there are things that have been forgotten or whatever, but if you keep on top of it, and hopefully there's a story, a schedule, a shot list, which some of the first assistant directors have, which they'll get from the director first thing in the morning, or what the continuity knows about it.
Yep.
So you've got a shot list, so we can work off that.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you can jump from the first shot to the third or fourth shot, because you know that you've got the second and third in that shot coming. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to. You can break it all up.
Well, the other thing about those is a lot of times you can go to the first AD and even after, like I don't know about you, but rehearsals I try to listen, and then first I usually try to come up with an idea of what I think we need, but then listen to what they need. So I've got that in the back of my mind. But then usually you can go, there's 6 shots here, but I think we can get shot number 4 in shot number 1. So that could save us some time if you want to. And then the two of you decide who's going to go pitch that idea.
Yes.
Depending on who's got the clap that day or whatever.
No, it's very important.
Yeah. But I think that those are the things that let the first AD that you're valuable to them, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. And just have a good relationship with them.
Yeah, it's invaluable. How often do you work on a movie where you're on it and you think, this is going to be unbelievable, and it turns out terrible, or vice versa? You work on something where it's like, I want my name off of that, and it becomes some amazing movie. Can you tell?
Yeah, I think you can tell. I've worked on some some absolute horrors when the dialogue, or the way it's been shot or whatever.
That's hard to get around.
And you think, this is not going to.
But have you worked on some of those where they actually have turned out, and this is actually pretty good?
I have. I'm just trying to think.
You don't have to name names.
No, I mean, no, I have. It's difficult to know because you're working on something when you think it's going to be absolutely brilliant, and it just then is cut badly.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make any sense.
I think it's easier to screw something up after you're done with it than to
Yes.
make something out of it after you're done with it.
You have normally you'd shoot so much material, you have so much coverage that you've got everything.
Yeah.
But then suddenly they whittle it down of timing, and they haven't got enough time. They've shot too much.
Mhm.
So suddenly the story is suddenly left out, and you think when you watch it, you think, "Hold on, what happened there? I don't understand."
What
it.
happened to the third act?
Yes, yeah.
It's like The Keep. Like you told us
Well,
about
yeah,
The
I've
Keep.
never
We're
seen
done.
all of it. I earn a lot of money out of it
Yeah,
as a
yeah.
loader, but
Oh, that's good.
it's but yeah,
Yeah.
it's, as I say, it's a cult film, and there are a few of those that they're just films that if you worked on and you've had a great time and you earn a living.
Yeah.
And especially as a loader or focus puller, because you're not that interested. When you get up to being an operator, you really want to take part, and you really,
Ownership.
that it's part of, you've got a little piece more in it
Yeah.
than just the clapper loader or the focus puller. I mean,
Yeah.
they're all equally important, but looking through the camera operating, you really would like the film to be a success and not a complete flop.
Yeah. Yeah.
So but we will never know. We never know. We look at, we go up for interviews, and you say, okay, it sounds good. Then you've already said yes. You've worked out how much money you're going to be earning. What are there? Then you get the script. And sometimes you look at the script and you think, this doesn't make it. Oh gosh, what's going
This
on?
isn't
Why
the
have I
movie I
said yes?
signed up
You've
for.
already committed yourself. And then lo and
And you
behold,
just
the first
put your
day,
head down and do the job.
It's a complete
We've all
disaster.
been there. Is there a movie that you're proudest of as far as your work is concerned, or not only one?
There's a couple of movies that I thoroughly enjoyed working on.
Yeah.
One of them was a musical, which was Mamma Mia 2.
Oh, okay.
Which, no matter how many times they played ABBA, you do start tapping your toe.
Of course, you can't not.
And you can't.
There's a reason that they were super good.
Sing along to it. And I find with it, when there's that, when you got the type of director, Al Parker was the director, and with the crew, with all the actors again, who were hilarious.
Just a blast.
It was a blast. We went out in the evenings all together. We filmed. We shot all together an island in Vis, off Croatia.
Oh.
And it was paradise.
Oh, that's amazing.
Every day, the camera crew, we were all travel by high-speed speedboats going to the location, and they built a beautiful set. The water was crystal clear that we all jumped in at lunchtime. It was just one of those jobs.
That's a dream.
And then the dancing and the songs just made you feel happy. Do you know what I mean?
It's funny that you say that, because I think it is sort of infectious. It's like when you work on, Silence of the Lambs, there's a dark, I mean, not to say that probably wasn't a good time, but the subject matter does change the mood on the set. Whereas I could see
down, and it's a bit more serious.
Mamma Mia 2 just being every day being a party.
You can't help laughing. The actors take it all with a pinch of salt. They don't take it as serious as they normally would.
We're having fun because it transcends, right?
Yeah,
it comes through.
And Pierce Brosnan singing. Well, he said to me on the day, he says, I've got the worst day of my life. And there's James Bond saying this, and you think, well, why is it the worst day of your life? He says, because I've got to sing. And he says, I can't sing. But it's Mamma Mia. Who cares?
Who cares?
And he did all right.
That's great. Oh, that's wonderful.
It was just good fun. So you know that film is going to work.
Yeah.
Because there are so many people who love Mamma Mia. There are obviously people who don't like the music, but there are more that like it than don't. And it's just a happy film.
That's great.
So, it's films like that I've enjoyed. And the one I've just finished, this Knives Out, working with great director.
Phenomenal.
And a fantastic cameraman. And again, the actors are just at their pinnacle. They are, they're just there at their point of. It's just brilliant. They're not trying to go out to become better they are at their best.
Yeah.
And they're just doing it because they enjoy doing it. It's not to try and get, or obviously they all want to get an Oscar of some kind, but they're doing it because they're really thoroughly enjoying it. And you see that comes out of them because they are loving it. And
that's fantastic.
That's the buzz you get. And that's the buzz that you get when being an operator, looking through that camera. Now it's digital, not so much film, but you still get that joy of looking through that eyepiece at that frame, and then someone saying turn over and you say set, and then it's the magic happens in front of that eyepiece. I generally try and look through an eyepiece rather than a monitor because I feel distant from a monitor, unless you're on a crane where you have to look at your TV screen.
Yep.
But when you look through that eyepiece, you suddenly go into a world of your own.
There's no question about it.
You can't explain it.
Yeah.
And when they say cut and they like the take, there's something that you just feel great about it. And it's just a lovely feeling. And it's I think is one of the best jobs in the film business.
I couldn't agree more. You've had an amazing career, and this has been fantastic. I could talk to you for 12 more hours, but I'm not going to do that.
We've got to go to the pub now.
Yeah, you're still going to go to the pub. Go see if Angelina Jolie's over there. So I'm going to leave you with, first of all, thank you. This is great. It was so wonderful to meet you and sit and talk. Question I leave everybody with, you can take us out with, is advice for someone starting in the film industry now on how to succeed, and or what you wish you knew 20, 30 years ago that you know now. What do you got?
I think go in there, listen, be observant, don't talk too much, just take it all in, and just the answer is you just watch, listen, and learn from everyone on that film set. Don't think you know it all, because you don't. Just take on everyone's experience and take on board that, and just take it from there, because every day is different. Even for us, you could be doing it for 100 years. Every day is a different day. So you just take on board that and just accept it and just go with that flow, and you'll have a fantastic time.
I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. We'll be back soon with another great episode. Don't forget to check us out on theop.io for all sorts of information on operating and storytelling. So thanks for listening and have a great day.